In this workbook called 02, Entering Data, it's a workbook that has different sheets in it. We've been working with it for a while. But let's imagine this is a brand new workbook. You're likely to see a name like Book 1 or Book 2. After putting in some data, you want to make sure that the data you've entered, and possibly some formulas were added too, you want to make sure that that's saved. And the question comes up, particularly with novices, whether in Excel or Word or PowerPoint, when we go to the File tab, should we use Save or Save As? Save As is always a little bit safer, and when you're saving a workbook for the first time, in other words, you started with a blank workbook, you added information, you now want to save it, Save As is always the safer way to go. Start with Save As. Your screen might look a little different depending on which version of Windows you're using, but the first order of business is to decide where we want to save this. In this case, maybe I'm going to choose Browse. And I'll choose, in this example, Desktop. But when you go to Save As, you have the options of saying what it is you want to name the file. If this were a new workbook, it would simply say something like Book 1 here. From time to time, although usually less important, we need to save this as a different file type. Now, if you're only working with Excel and other people in your environment are working with the same version of Excel, you probably won't be touching this very much at all. But what if the workbook you're about to save needs to be sent to somebody who's using an older version of Excel? Click the drop arrow to the right of the Save As type panel right here. And lots of choices here, but if I were trying to save this for somebody still using Excel 2003, I would point to the choice up here, Excel 97 to 2003 workbook. You see some other choices here. You could be needing to save Excel in one of these forms. I think for most Excel users you don't need this very often, but do be aware of that idea. The name, you've got up to 255 characters you can use here. If I want to save this under a different name, now remember, often if it's new it's going to say Book 1, but maybe you want to call this First Half Sales. Remember, up to 255 characters you can use here. For the most part, stay away from special characters. Underscore is okay, dash is okay, but don't use an asterisk, a slash, or certain other characters. And rather than worrying about which ones work and don't work, pretty much stay away from those. Where we save it? Of course you would know something about your environment. Do you want to save it on the hard drive? Do you have a flash drive plugged in right now? Do you want to save it there? In my example here, I'm simply going to put it on the desktop. Make that choice there. Maybe I'll put it next to these files here. Here's the name I want, I'll click Save. And there's that name at the top there. Later, after making some additions here, putting in some other data here, I'll want to make sure that what I've got saved and what I'm seeing here are the same, so I'll go back to either the button in the upper left-hand corner and click it, or perhaps press Ctrl and S going back to the File tab and choosing Save As typically isn't necessary, although you certainly can do it. Again, if there's any concern about what you're calling the file, its name, or where you're storing it, or what file type it is, go to Save As. But as a general rule of thumb, you use Save As when you're saving a file for the first time. Thereafter you can use Save. And you don't even have to go through the File menu. If we simply want to update this, meaning we've added some data and we want to make sure that it's been saved, we'll simply click that button in the upper left corner, or press Ctrl and S. So in recapping, Save As perhaps safer, you don't need to use it all the time. Occasional use of it when you're concerned about changing the file name, or saving it in a different location, or changing its file type. Otherwise, a quick file save, much of the time, means update. That's what you do after the file's already created. Thanks for watching, goodbye.